Now, with that, we have the external environment. And with the external environment here, it's more looking at, the outside support that you find in an entrepreneurial environment. And you have things like availability of venture capital, experienced or successful entrepreneurs, technically skilled labor force, suppliers, customers, the new markets that are existing, favorable government policies, universities and research institutions that exist, infrastructural facilities, and transportation. So we're just going to dabble and look at these elements one by one to understand the dynamics of this external environment that we find ourselves. And this is typically what we call the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And the entrepreneurial ecosystem in itself, though it does entail also the internal environment when we talk about the entrepreneurial ecosystem. But basically, we know that there are certain elements that play a major role in supporting entrepreneurs as they go through their entrepreneurship journey. And when you have things like availability of venture capital in the society. So venture capitals, basically these are a group of investors, usually angel investors, but investors that have the necessary resources in terms of capital resources and even expertise and technical know-how to support other thriving entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are trying to thrive, with their ideas to become feasible. And these venture capitalists, they'll usually focus on more more of the tech industry because of the large capital that is needed to start most of these businesses. But a lot of times, as I said, there are angel investors that for maybe one also have had that background experience of being an entrepreneur in the past, or had a startup and sold their startup, and through selling their startup they have money to play around with, so they're willing to invest in other entrepreneurs that have great ideas. And because these individuals already have the expertise, experience, knowledge, and skills, they're able to then not only provide capital in terms of investment into the business, but they're able to exchange capital for equity, because they usually exchange equity, and which they become part of the business, shareholders of the business, but then they also become part of helping to manage the business, though it can be an agreement that they have a certain level of control or not to control the startup or the business. And once that's agreed upon, they're able to give their input and even help towards networking, entrepreneurs within the entrepreneur ecosystem towards getting suppliers, getting shelf space for their products, providing them with a network of social media influencers, for example, because they already have that connection or that contacts or network that exists already. So it's like a two-way streak, and when it comes to venture capitalists. But again, what you tend to see in Nigeria is that this tends to lack a lot. We do have angel investors in Nigeria. We have the Abuja Angel Investor Network, the Lagos Angel Investor Network, the Kaduna Angel Investor Networks, and these are individuals now that actually invest in entrepreneurs. And the difference is that the venture capitalists are a group of angel investors or investors that then contribute to then to help towards investing in a business for equity. But angel investors, we tend to see how there's lack of this in Nigeria, and how much more needs to be done to kind of promote more venture capitalists and angel investors. And what you tend to see in Nigeria is that even if that is taking place, usually you tend to see them coming from outside the country, and they actually take our ideas and take it away with people, or highest, especially if maybe it's an idea that, or a startup that's already starting to grow. They actually then just buy the startup, and then it becomes theirs. So these are the kind of the issues that we tend to have in Nigeria, whereby not enough support, not enough activities are taking place when it comes to these venture capitalists. And I think we need to, much more needs to be done in line with that. Now, also another availability of is experienced or successful entrepreneurs. people need to hear stories. People need to hear success stories. People need to hear challenging stories. People need to hear realistic stories of entrepreneurs that have made it in the business. And the whole point of having people like you or me that look like you or me, their stories being heard, and they are there. There are a lot of them that are around, but having the platform whereby their stories are actually told, and it will go a long way in translating to a lot of people or individuals or youths, their ability to also succeed. Because if they see people like you or me doing what they thought maybe is impossible or felt that is not feasible within the environment they find themselves, once they see others have been able to overcome obstacles when it comes to starting a business, they've been able to overcome going international or going international when it comes to their market. They're able to overcome getting the necessary finances, sourcing for finances from other investors across the world. Then it gives people hope to know that they can also do the same. And also remember, as I always say, that having all this support doesn't mean, or anybody that has been successful as an entrepreneur does not necessarily mean that person was made it in one day. Most of them have a story, a long story, and a lot of challenges through the story. And hearing this gives you a better perspective of the realities of what goes on when it comes to entrepreneurship, or starting a business. But also understanding that whether you see the people like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Richard Branson or Dangote, and you see them and you say, I want to be like this person. You have to understand that there's a lot in between that comes before that end of the story, whereby you say that you have a good story to tell. So understanding that and listening to the stories and learning from them, learning from other people's experience, and it goes a long way to then help shift the mindset of the youths in terms of wanting to succeed and understanding that they have a chance to succeed through other people's story. Then we also have technically skilled labor force, whereby we see a lot of times where, because and typically in Nigeria we're so much focused on the education system, being a lawyer, being a doctor, having a bachelor's degree, of course, PhD, master's PhD. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that skilled technical skills plays a major role in the capabilities that we're able to inculcate into our environment that we find ourselves. And again, what I mean by this, yes, you'd say, okay, but we have a lot of engineers. But how many engineers can translate what they've learned theoretically to, the technicality of what they do? And I think this is where, our education system, as an educator, we have to fill that gap to try and create an environment where it's not just about the theoretical, but also trying to translate the theoretical into practical insights and giving individuals practical insight on how to actually then attain what has been taught on paper. And that will go a long way towards building that skilled labor force that we're talking about. But then also going into training workshops, programs that then build on that training. And as I've said earlier on, talking about educational experience, I've emphasized that a lot of times there's so many people that haven't gone through the school system due to financial restrictions. But at the end of the day, as I said, we're in the information age, whereby I know a lot of people that have learned certain technical skills just watching YouTube, just watching videos, and that is enough for them to learn a lot of things that they've done today. And so don't think because I don't have the means or I don't have the opportunity. If you want to learn, that's why it goes back to the willingness and desire to achieve. if you have that high desire to achieve, you will go to any extent to make sure you achieve. Example that I gave you was internship. You're able to work hand in hand or be an apprentice with somebody, and you're able to build. And it doesn't take much. It's about saying that, in fact, you can go as far as saying, you don't even have to pay me. I want to work for you, because you know you're getting something valuable from that individual at the end of the day. But I'm not saying that Bisayo should not be paid. Bisayo should definitely be paid at the end of the day. Yes. Basically, what I'm just trying to, hit at is that for any reason, building your technical skills can come in different ways, but finding ways to then try and achieve that in line with what your passion is essential towards, building your capabilities. But then we also have to understand that as a society, that's now talking about government, we have to provide that support towards providing these skills, these technical skills and platforms where individuals can get these technical skills at the end of the day. And that's why, yes, government has been, doing a wonderful job trying to bring out programs that can help, towards building these technical skills. But we understand with our high population, much, much more needs to be done towards achieving that. Then we also have the suppliers, and here we talk about suppliers in terms of the availability of supply of certain materials, raw materials, resources, and that goes a long way to determine if an individual is going to be willing or not to pursue a particular business or startup. And once something is not available or becomes difficult, it definitely makes or breaks an individual. We can see how even with the economy the way it is, with the inflation rate, high inflation rate, that has basically has basically increased the prices of products. In fact, it was so pitiful. Just yesterday, I was watching an Instagram post of an individual. This woman is a baker, and she was basically crying her eyes out in terms of the dire situation that we find ourselves because of the inflation rate in Nigeria, and how that is affecting businesses. And she sincerely, it was very pathetic that she said even sugar she can't afford to buy sugar because she's a baker, and it's something that she needs for baking. So it's that she reduces the quantity of sugar. If she reduces the quantity of sugar, it reduces the quality of her products. And all these things she has to consider. I remember, because almost on a daily basis, prices are hiking on almost everything. At the end of the day, how she sells the products today, and in terms of selling the cakes or whatever it is, the pastry she sells, at the end of the day, when she goes to the market, it has climbed up, and then she has to now reconsider how much she's going to sell it the next week, and that is a nightmare for any business. So once the environment is not supportive of these businesses, whether you talk about having availability of resources in terms of the suppliers, or you're talking about the economy and how it affects again the supply of these raw materials, at the end of the day, it definitely makes or breaks some of these businesses. For sure, some businesses will have to stop. I know a bakery shop that I used to go to in Gwarimpa, and at the end of the day, they told me that they're going to close by the next week, because anytime they go to the market, the prices are just climbing up, and they don't know what to do again, so they just want to close for now. So you can imagine what this is doing to society or the businesses across the board, and how that will of course affect them in terms of their businesses. You talk about, of course, the customers, and the dynamics of the customers one has, and the demand of the customers, what they want, and even the demographics, meaning the dynamics of the demographics of the customers that exist within the environment that you find yourself, goes a long way in determining what you need to provide for the customers, in terms of what are their needs, what are their wants, and then how do you think they'll benefit from your business or your startup that you have. So understanding your customers, the dynamics of the customers and how they work, goes a long way in knowing how to go about and putting your business together. And of course it influences that environment. Then the new markets. When we talk about the new markets, we're just talking about markets that are coming up with new ideas, and then all of a sudden it creates a kind of new dynamics of what exists. I always give the example of Uber. Before Uber, there was nothing like the taxi should I say industry, or the taxi businesses. But now, because of Uber, it has created that new dynamics. Even before telecommunication existed, there was nothing like telecommunication, just the typical telephone. And of course, it created that industry. So you tend to see, of course, up and coming new markets. I think just recently when AI came on board, I'm sure AI has been here for a while, but, we just recently knew more about it. And all of a sudden, when I saw AI, then I saw AI marketing. I said, what is AI marketing now? So you're always seeing new things. Before it was digital marketing. Now it's all of a sudden AI marketing. And all these ideas tend to come up to bring in new trends and new ways of doing things. That, of course, makes things much faster and more effective. But at the end of the day, it changes the dynamics of how things are done. But the whole point is that these new markets, and once known about, and once are known and identified, of course, an entrepreneur can use that to their advantage if they know how to, and then use it to then create more productivity, and then to even create opportunity for themselves. A lot of times when things happen in the society, especially on the macro level, a lot of people will tell you that this is a problem. A true entrepreneur, somebody creative, will turn that problem into something productive. So like the COVID-19 is a good example, whereby you see when COVID came and everybody was like, businesses are closed, but and then of course everybody was in their homes and things like that. But what you saw at the end of the day, you saw some few people that then looked at the situation and then turned it around and said, okay, but everybody's at home, so what can I do to then be more productive? Whereby, because then of course there was a hike in social media, so a lot of people turned to doing more YouTube, more remote work, and understanding that the dynamics have changed. And even today we can see how COVID-19's ripple effect, we can see it even today with more remote workforce. So nowadays you see some workers or employers will tell you don't have to even, we can employ you and it's going to be remote. You're going to work remotely. So at the end of the day, you're going to work at home. And at the end of the day, it's an advantage for everybody because the organization saves money. You also save your time and resources, and everybody wins in that type of situation. So also favorable government policies is something very essential when it comes to the entrepreneurial environment. Of course, when we talk about favorable government policy, we're talking about policies that support entrepreneurs in terms of, especially those that are just starting. So like the Startup Act is a very good example that supports entrepreneurs in terms of tax reliefs and provide them with support and finances when just starting the business. And these are examples of favorable government policies that are put in place to then support entrepreneurs. We talked about the taxes. We talked about laws that help towards protecting infant industries, for example, against multinational giants that exist already, and how you're able to protect them so that at the end of the day they have a favorable way of competing with these giants. And all these are considered when it comes to government policies, that if these government policies are able to think forward and understand, and I agree, Nigerian government does understand the importance of entrepreneurs, but in putting more policies and implementing effectively policies that will help towards positioning these entrepreneurs to thrive more effectively and compete favorably with not just companies within Nigeria, but outside globally in the global scale, is also essential towards making sure that entrepreneurship thrives in the environment that we find ourselves in Nigeria. Then the next one is universities and research institutions. So of course this hits close to heart. Of course, I'm a lecturer, as you know, and with universities, as I said, I think government and it trickles down to government policies, whereby government has, of course, put in place that all institutions across the board, whereby it's mandated that you have to do entrepreneurship as a course, and becomes a general course. And though it has the advantages, I would say it's a very good attempt in terms of that. And I can see how that has helped towards trying to change the perspective of students. The only thing I would say with that is, when teaching entrepreneurship as a GST course, most students look at it as, of course, a common course. And what happens is that they just look at it as more of, I have to do it, I have no choice. So again, it goes back to giving the individual, the youth, the freedom to choose what they want to do, and let them have the desire to want to learn. And that would go a long way to help that situation. But I think another aspect that affects it, and in line with, even what's written here, which is universities and research institutions, I do believe that the educational system, when it comes to entrepreneurship, it shouldn't start from the tertiary institution. It needs to start from the primary institutions. And what I mean by that is that for any institution, or should I say for youths to be able to learn or be able to be impacted by a certain situation, it needs to start from their foundational level, from the primary level, and they need to learn what we call skills, knowledge, and of course then they're able to then practicalize that knowledge and skills to reality. And to do that, they need to then have that knowledge from the onset of the primary level. And once they're able to build on that primary level, so meaning if government can inculcate or put in place a policy or a law whereby primary schools now have to start imbibing some of the necessary orientational skills or mindset skills that are necessary for individuals or children to become oriented towards being entrepreneurially inclined. And that would go a long way to prepare them when they come to even the secondary and the tertiary institutions, to be well equipped in terms of the mindset, and even start learning at even secondary level how to run a business, how to turn 1 naira into 2 naira, how to take risks, how to be a leader in terms of heading a unit, or running or coordinating a group of people, or having necessary communication skills. All this can be taught from the foundational levels, and then they'll then groom themselves in line with that, so that by the time they get to the tertiary institutions and what is being taught to them now is taught, it's easily assimilated, it's easily accepted by them and understood by them, and then they're just to turn all that into action and actually be prepared for the world that they find themselves. And I think that's what we need to kind of put in place to then really set the foot for our youths to be entrepreneurially inclined in the future. So of course, yes, not just the university, but the education system as a whole has a major role to play to actually achieving that. And then of course we talk about the research institutes, whereby research institutes still within the university premises, but then also government research institutes that then are dedicated towards entrepreneurship and looking at factors or challenges or issues that are affecting or mitigating the success of entrepreneurs, and then being able to translate the data collected into action, or trying to translate it into putting policies in place, and through the the information that they're able to gather through the data collected through these research institutions. So we have to have dedicated research institutions, both from universities, again, as I said, and government, that are willing to put that into perspective and understand the objective is trying to improve on the entrepreneurship orientation and the success of entrepreneurs, and then putting researches in place, or researches that are focused on trying to improve that, to help towards policy implementation and of course improving the society as a whole. Then we have the infrastructural facilities. Now this is a major issue in Nigeria. We know our infrastructure. We have, poor infrastructure. Getting better or less depends on your perspective of that. We have the light, the electricity, we have the roads, we have the water, and we can see how a lot of industries have closed, in the past and even presently due to lack of infrastructure, due to lack of trying to having these resources of infrastructure that helps towards running these businesses, and how a lot of businesses either have to close or exit their businesses or not even be able to start at all because of the lack of these infrastructures that we find today. And we know, and remember, we talk about infrastructure, we also talk about networks or telecommunication technology that also play the role. We can see how the Wi-Fi system generally, or the network system generally, is in Nigeria, and how that also reflects upon the productivity of some of these businesses. So once these infrastructures are not in place effectively, of course, it's going to affect the outcome. And remember, we're always talking about how these businesses have to compete favorably with international standard organizations. And if these organizations internationally are more favorable in terms of the infrastructures and of course other factors, then of course the chances of our own businesses or startups competing favorably dwindles down a lot. So we have to put these infrastructures in place that help to support that. Then finally, we have the transportation, and transportation here means, of course, the road networks, but then also having transportation, not just the roads, but also the train transportation, air transportation, that then provides a kind of seamless service delivery, which we know, that's another issue in Nigeria altogether. We don't have enough train transportation when we look at it. Trains are used for transporting goods and services a lot for other countries, but here we're limited with that, and that in itself will affect the ability for one to, of course, conduct their businesses. Of course, road is as I said, is another ball game altogether. The road network then affects the transportation system as a whole, and where one can go and how the connectivity from one place to the other is, and that of course affects the outcome of any business at the end of the day. And even the air, we can see how, because of the inflation rates, especially with the fuel issue, we can see how basically an airfare right now, I think is running in the hundreds and something thousand. So that in itself, and some businesses use that actually to run their businesses. So you can imagine what some businesses have to now look into re-strategizing how they'll go about that to save a lot of cost. So these are things that one has to consider. So just looking at these entrepreneurial factors, the external environment and the internal environment, we can see how each one plays a role in helping towards a certain stage of the entrepreneurial journey, whether it's startup or during the startup or post-startup, how it helps, or growth startup, how it helps towards the success or the lack of success of an entrepreneur. But understanding that for an entrepreneur to be successful, for an individual to be successful, we as stakeholders of that environment all have a role to play towards the success of entrepreneurship in the society that we call Nigeria. So I'm going to stop from here, and I'm going to go to the next topic, which is how to build the entrepreneurial environment.